Yes, people, I hope you're all good. So today we are back with another video and we're going to look at my 3 favorite plugins for creating bass lines. So let's get straight into Ableton. So we're inside Ableton and I've just made this little beat, which I'll play for you now. Shameless plug, all the sounds from this beat is from my latest sample pack. The link is below with a 15% discount just for all my YouTube viewers because I know you guys are going to love this one. We got a simple beat on the go, so then I can just easily show you how my favorite bass plugins work and can actually sound within a beat. So we're going to start with the one that you probably all know because I use it in all my tracks, SubBoomBass 2. So this is by Rob Pappen. I believe all of his other plugins are really good as well. Blue 2 I think is meant to be really good, but SubBoomBass is the GOAT. You could pretty much end the video here and go and buy this and you'll be sorted forever, because if I go into the manager setting, you can see this is just one preset bank. We have then sub preset banks, which there's 2 of, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bass banks, plus plenty more down here for you to search through and find basses. There must be over 300, 400 bass presets in here that are easily usable that you can put within your track, and it's just going to sound absolutely great. So what we'll do is we'll just show you around this plugin and show you how easy it is to use. So even when the plugin first loads up, it will load up like this, which is the main screen, and then you can go into the manager setting, which will show you where all the presets are, and the bank folder is down here on the side. It will load up on this introduction page, which just has a variety of bass samples from all the packs below. And it will load up with this one here. Which is a really nice sort of 808 kick, and that can be easily used within this minimal tech style. You'll see artists like Eddie M using sort of these similar sort of sounds on his bass. So there's plenty to choose from just this introduction page. As you can tell, I can just start flicking through some. That one sounds really nice. And what you can do with SubBoomBass as well is there's little stars beside, so you can just highlight these stars if you like the sound of one. So see what this one is. So this one is a favorite of mine that I actually use a lot, so you can just highlight it as a star so you know that you like that one. And you can always go down to here and go copy, and then here is your favorites bank, and you can always put paste. So now that preset that I just copied and pasted is now in my favorite bank, so I can have a list of all my favorite presets in there. So it's worth going through the presets and just putting them in your favorite bank. Saves so much time doing this. So we can just have a look through some other bass presets. So and there's such a nice variety of bass samples in here, and this is why this is my favorite synth. Button halfway through the video, but I just wanted to advertise my brand new website, brendanjamesmusic.com. So you can head to the link in the description of this video and go there. I'm offering now one-to-one tuition, mix downs and masters, and in the coming few months there will be sample packs on there, and the next track from scratch series will all be on there. So please just check it out and let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you're going to use those services. If you're having struggle with the website, just drop me an email, which is on the website, or drop me a message on Instagram, and I will let you get back into the video. There's such a variety that you can use and manipulate in ways, either if you want to create a bass line, or if we cut the low end out of this, that would make a really nice synth. So you can really just sort of push the boundaries of this synth, and it doesn't have to be just for bass, even though it says it in the name, and that's what this video is about. You can really manipulate the sounds in here and get them sounding how you want. So what we're just going to do is We're going to use this one here, and we're going to go back off the manager setting into the display screen. So now you can see what this preset is doing. So you can see what oscillator 1 is, what oscillator 2 is. You can play around with the sub oscillator, the semitones, add saturation. You can change this by clicking on here to post saturation, power or fuzz. Personally, the saturation in here is quite good, but I'd still rather use saturation from a plugin itself. Just have a bit more control and freedom over the sound that way, I find. Then we can move on to the filter section, which is pretty standard if you understand sort of synthesis and stuff like that. You have your cutoff, your resonance, which is your Q, envelope, attack, decay, sustain, and release of the envelope, an LFO, which you can pick how you want to move it and where you want that to go to, where you go MIDI sources or modulation sources. You can then map that to wherever you want with regards to the plugin. And then you have your amp setting, which controls the oscillators. So you've got the ADSR there. Now, if you've just listened to me, you'll say all of that and you think, I have no clue what you're going on about, Brendan. I don't understand any of that. You can swap to the easy page. And this is why I love this plugin. Now it's very, very simple in how it works. You can understand what waveform it is, and it will tell you up here what the waveform is, so we can keep that on a square. On there it's a sine which links to there. The semitone, so you can move that. Filter, Q, most of you are probably going to understand filter and resonances. And then you've got your envelope and decay and the release of the envelope, and then some volume as well. So this easy page makes it super simple for you guys who don't understand sound design and synthesis, so you can still easily use this plugin and shape the sound how you want it to sound. It's also got a sequencer in here, which is a bit advanced. I personally don't use many sequencers, and if I do, I'd use external sequencers. But if you wanted to learn how to use the sequencer in here, then be my guest. You also have an effects section in SubBoomBass. So if we go back off the easy page, we can go down to here, and there is a list of effects that you can add to whatever sound you want. Now, some of these effects are better when creating synths. For example, you're probably not going to want reverb on your bass, but if you was making a synth from SubBoomBass, you could always apply a bit of reverb. And again, the effects in here are really good. They're very high quality, but sometimes it is easier just to use the external plugins to create the effect that you want. So if we now just give you an example of what we can do with SubBoomBass, try and create a little bass line. And SubBoomBass is velocity sensitive. So what I mean by that is if the velocity is all the way up, the filter envelope is going to be up. If we bring the velocity down, the filter envelope is brought down as well. You can turn this off inside the filter if you wanted to, or you can just find your sweet spot with regards to velocity and change that. But this can really create some movement and dynamics within your bass line, so don't be afraid to experiment with this. Maybe try something like this. And you can see then just how easy it is to make a bass line and changing the velocity. It's super simple. And what we can do is we can just experiment now with the presets. So maybe try this one. And this is where SubBoomBass becomes my favorite, because you can easily swap the presets and just go back off the manager setting and just play with some of the parameters to get it sitting right in the mix. So I could hear this sound needed a bit more release. So let's just bump up the release. It sounds much better. So this is why I recommend just learning synthesis. I may even do a video on this in the future, because if you understand the basic knowledge of synthesis and sound design, you can then just find a good preset, tweak it to fit perfectly within your track, and then move on. It makes you a much more efficient producer doing this way than having to then try and find the perfect preset or the perfect sample and never really finding it because you don't know how to manipulate sounds to make it work for you. Okay, so hopefully you've paused this video and already purchased SubBoomBass and listened to me, because I'm going to guarantee you that it makes you a better producer. But now we're going to move on to my second favorite bass plugin, which is Analog Lab by Arturia. Now, if you've watched some of my previous videos, you've seen that I've used this regularly with regards to synths, and I believe I've actually done a video on it saying it's probably the best synth for minimal house. So I'm going to put that to the test now. Why I love Analog Lab? Because of the variety of presets in there at your disposal, just like that. Now, obviously we're on the topic of bass, so we can ignore the rest of these and go straight into the bassline section. Now, if I just start scrolling, you can see the little cursor there. See how many presets there are. It's very, very similar to SubBoomBass in the fact that there's so many presets that you just too many to choose from sometimes. Now, what makes Analog Lab special in my opinion is because if we went to styles, you can then search by genre, you can search by styles, by characteristics, you can search by the instruments that Arturia has to offer, the types of bass lines. So if you're looking for some more of a plucked bass line, so if you click on that one, and now let's just have a look at this first preset. And that one's fire straight away. I love the sound of that. Much like SubBoomBass, there's a little heart section, so you can just heart whichever ones you like. And similar to SubBoomBass with the easy page, you have down here the instrument effects, so the brightness, which sort of almost is like the filter, timbre, which is almost similar to resonance, time, which is like the decay and the release, movement, which is an LFO. You can see now that's changing. You have some basic effects, reverb, delay, phases, and chorus. But other than that, you just have the bare minimum effects and parameters to change, so you can tweak sounds. So you can tweak the preset to perfectly fit what you're trying to do. And what is also great about Analog Lab is the fact if we go off to the right here, we can actually open the synth it's pulling the preset from. Now this is doing this all within Analog Lab. It's not actually dragging and dropping the synth on there itself. So now we have access to the Mini V, which is a replica of the Mini Moog. The Arturia bundle is effectively replicas of very well-known synths. So you have the DX7 by Yamaha, you have the Mini Moog by Moog, and plenty others. So now we have the actual synth itself open, so we can control the cutoff, we can control the attack, and you can see I can then tune it, I can change the oscillators, I can change the range of the oscillators. You have access to the whole synth just within Analog Lab, unlike just having the effects section and some of the instrument sort of effects down here. So this is a great way then to sort of manipulate that sound further and really tweak it to how you want it to sound. So what we can do now is we can see if we can fit this into our existing groove. So now we're starting to layer in bass sounds on top of each other. We just need to make sure to cut the low end on that, obviously, so we're not having any clashing with the low end. And then we can go back into the Analog Lab and quickly add some effects to it. So let's add a bit of chorus and a bit of phaser, so it adds a bit of modulation every time, add a bit of width as well. And now you've got a really cool bass synth, which is playing nicely off the bass line we've already created. So let's hop in to the last one, which, believe it or not, is Operator. Operator is awesome. It's an FM synthesis, which is stock with Ableton, and you can make some really, really cool sounds within here. So now we're just going to create my sort of go-to sub bass within Operator. And what we do is on oscillator A, we have just a sine wave. On oscillator B, we're going to change that to a square. Now, because this is FM synthesis currently, so down here is how the modulation works. So if you have each color stacked on top of each other, that means D is going to modulate C, C is going to modulate B, B is going to modulate A. You can actually change this if you want and turn this into just a normal subtractive synthesis. So now each oscillator is just going to stack on top of each other, and no modulation or FM synthesis is going to happen. But for this, we actually want a bit of FM. And what we're going to do is we're going to add this square up. Now, if I add this all the way up, you can see what it does. Normal sine wave, FM sine wave with a square. So now we're just going to find like a nice sweet spot. So somewhere around there. We're going to change the filter out to where it says clean. We can now change this to a different filter. So these are replicas of well-known synths. So we can change it to MS2. Then we can increase the drive. So now if I just, obviously that's adding some gain, but it's adding a bit of distortion and a bit more harmonics and adding a bit more sort of flavor and power to that sort of sub bass, which is exactly what I want. And then we can just subtract with the filter itself. And that is exactly how I make my sub basses. So now what we can do is we can just copy our original bass, which was made in SubBoomBass, over to our operator, and we can deactivate all of these, bring them back down so they're all sort of in that sub frequency range. And now what we can do is we can add some sub notes to get a bit more of a rolling sub bass underneath the melody that we've already got. So what we can do, so we can just almost copy the notes. So let's put one there, maybe do one there. Let's do one there, bring that velocity down. Could always do an extended one there. Maybe do something like that. And then leave that on the end as it is. So now if we play all of our basses together, we're going to have this effect. And if I take this sub away, you still got a really nice bass with that, but now this sub is just adding sort of more low end in there. And when that side change, you're just going to get a really nice pumping feeling, especially in a club. You'll just sort of feel that low end a bit more. And there you go, that's another video all over and done with. So if you want this project so you can have a look at some of the samples which are included in my sample pack, the link is below to download the project. It's also got the bass stems in there as well, so feel free to do whatever you want with them. And I will see you next week for another video.